On the forest ridge, southeast of the Crypt of Scrolls, our company tired for having traveled most of 2 days, we found ourselves surrounded, 3 of us against 30, maybe 40. But who were they? After Chiona fled using her invisibility spell, Bear, Zybeth, and I backed ourselves up to a tree, armed with our magics. "Who goes there?" I said, directing my voice out into the forest. Were they bandits gathering to feast on these few vulnerable travelers, unescorted by an armed contingent through lands where the High Maguks no longer held sway, now deprived of the one scroll, the law of the land, Canadex? Or were they warriors allied with this same High Maguks, Ravenna Cythera, sent to carry out the sentence that she had decreed some 3 weeks ago, when she declared that I, Eridisia Myrick, was banished from Scrollhaven on pain of death? And yet here through Scrollhaven I traveled in stark disobedience to her edict, therefore deserving of the full penalty of the law? Or were they a loose-knit group of local denizens, concerned about the anarchy that raged unchecked elsewhere, combining their might in arms for mutual self-protection, and alarmed by the recent shaking of the earth, overcast daytime skies, and thick coating of ash that had descended from heaven, so alarmed that they had elected to venture this direction in their search for meaning from these cataclysmic events? As like as any was my thought at the time, not wanting to entertain my deeper, darker fears, not knowing what we faced here, the conjuration of the evil necromancer Travert Crepitan's picture, likely to exceed the most horrific creation of my imagination by leaps and bounds. Of course, I received no reply to my query, as I thought I would not, for any necromanced interlocutors, as my imagination might produce, who might be surrounding us, would betray neither their position nor identity by responding. Our hearts beating like rabbits in our throats, we waited, crouched at the base of a tree, grateful for its protection, the waiting game all to our advantage. The stirrings here and there in such a nighttime forest, the fall of a dried twig, the rustle of breeze through a floor of leaves, the burrowing of a ground squirrel in its nest, all held ominous portent of impending attack, each sound in our minds the initial motion of the launch, each the harbinger of flashing blades and blood-curdling screams. These stirrings were all the more ominous under a sky so thick with volcanic ash that nary a star nor glimmer of moon did pierce the dark. My heart stopped at each sound, my breath catching in my throat, my palms so slick with sweat that I'm sure my scroll still bears imprint of my grasp, and my hair must have surely turned a frightful gray. The fetor of decay was so rank that I might have retched if I hadn't been so frightened. Every step on the thick bed of forest floor leaves caused a fresh spray of decay-laden stench to erupt from around our feet. Bear and Zybeth spoke not a word as we awaited our fate, their fear palpable as I'm sure mine was too. The skin crawled up the back of my neck like some necrophiliating beetle, and I regretted having called out earlier, sure that my terror had set my voice a-quaver. "Quick, light from above," Zybeth said. "Spite the darkness, light the darkness," Bear said, her sword singing through the air. The trees above us lit the darkness. Bodies 5 thick crowded round us, and we attacked. Bodies they were, shells without souls, agglomerations of vegetative rot necromanced from the forest floor, their parts as putrid as the decay from which they'd been made. But those parts held weapons, clubs, rocks, staves, and in the dance of death we found it wasn't enough to dismember them limb to limb, but to deprive their trunks of legs and arms and heads. Bear was a dervish, and Zybeth no slouch with spell, but we 3 were nearly overwhelmed anyway, the thick waves of putrefaction pulling at our feet. Knee-deep in sludge we could barely move, and in fact found the sludge surging higher upon our legs. "We're trapped," Bear said, her sword useless against the recrudescent rot.